Hello everyone, my name is Cindy Garcia and this is my week 6 presentation for the City of Baldwin Park's tax structure for the MPA 530 Public Finance and Budgeting class. For this week's presentation on the tax structure, I'll be talking about the top 3 revenue sources in the Baldwin Park budget. I'll also be going over the assessment I've done on whether these revenues are progressive or regressive. And I'll be ending my presentation with my closing statement. So I went back to week 1 and I pulled up the adopted budget for the fiscal year 2020 to 2021 for the City of Baldwin Park. And in this slide, I provided a screenshot of the sources that the city relies upon to generate its revenues. The total adopted revenue for this fiscal year is rounded up to about $28 million. And the top 3 revenues for the city are property tax in lieu of vehicle license fees, which has a revenue of 28.1%. The second one is sales tax, and that has a revenue of 20.6%. And the third one is charges for services at 14.7%. The property tax in lieu of vehicle license fee is a state-imposed and collected tax on ownership of a registered vehicle. For the local sales tax, it's a percentage of what the transaction price of a good and service levied at the point of when the sale is done. And the sales tax rate tends to vary by jurisdiction. And the type of charges for the services for Baldwin Park, they include admin fees, billboard revenues, booking fees, recreation fees, jail fee revenues, summer day camp, police charges, and that's just to name a few that I was able to pull up on the adopted budget. As I mentioned, the top 3 revenue sources are property tax in lieu of vehicle license fees, sales tax, and charges for services. After doing some research, I was able to see that these revenues all fall under the regressive tax structure. Low-income individuals pay a higher amount in taxes under a regressive tax system. Regressive taxes include property taxes and sales tax on goods. In this slide, I provided some references to some articles that helped back up my assessment on the type of tax structure for my 3 revenues. In the first article, called Limits of Property Taxes and Charges, City Revenue Structures After the Great Recession, it discusses how under a regressive tax structure, charges can be a source of revenue for cities under stress. Peck argues that state governments are pushing fiscal stress down to the local level and forcing cities to engage in austerity, urbanism, and adopting more regressive revenue sources such as user fees and charges. For Baldwin Park, this would be considered the revenue category of charges for services. The second article is called Are Local Property Taxes Regressive, Progressive, or What? The article explains that local property taxes are considered regressive. It goes further into detail about components of property taxes and discusses how it's not really a tax, but more of a fee for service. For example, the vehicle license fees. And then on the third article, called Assessment Regressivity and Property Taxation, it talks about the homestead exemptions. And although property taxes can be considered regressive, homestead exemptions imply a progressive tax structure when progressivity is measured as a relationship between tax payments and the property value. So as I mentioned, property tax in lieu of vehicle license fees, sales tax, and charges for services are considered to be regressive. However, once you start to tap into the homestead exemptions of real property, the tax structure changes to progressive. So this concludes my presentation. Thank you guys for watching.